Common sense buffs. It's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without some dope content to react to. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the very first video of 2026. Guys, it's good to be back. So thankful to God for good health, sound mind, um, and just a good start to 2026. Hopefully, for all of you who are going to be joining me live and then watching this video later, I pray that you are in good health and of sound mind and that you're prospering. And if you're going through something right now, maybe the year that hasn't started off the way you thought it should have, and you're going through a little bit of something, I pray that God is with you. He gives you the strength. And just remember, man, bad times will not last forever. All right, guys, while we wait for people to come in here, go ahead and hop in the chat and let me know where you're joining from. This channel continues to grow, and it's all because of you. I think we're right at around 446 subscribers on our way to 500. So if you're digging the content, go ahead and hit that like. Definitely want this to be a conversation on these live sessions. So hop in the comments and chat with me, and of course, subscribe and share. Today, like in life, we're going to be honoring the people who stayed, right? I think after the season ended, it was a bit disappointing. The team went 3-9, and there was a lot of chaos, man. I mean, if you watch what was happening on the field, even when you listen to some of the speakers who came in, because Prime loves to bring in some of the people who he's good friends with, who had success in the NFL to speak to the team. One of the most memorable instances of that is when Ray Lewis came in and say, man, when I watch you guys are not playing together. And I never really felt that togetherness, especially through adversity, right? Togetherness, it's easy to be together when things are going well. When everybody's winning, everybody's having a good time, it's easy to be together. It's usually around the time when things get tough that you really find out who the people are that are going to be in the trenches with you, good, bad, or indifferent, whether that's be in marriage or in family or even at work. It's especially true in football because football is a true team sport, right? You got 11 people. Everybody has to be on the same page. Everybody has to care about each other, and everybody has to be there for one another to pick each other up. But it was just never the case for the Colorado Buffaloes this year. And one of the things that were cited as part of the problem was a lack of leadership. And, in the transfer portal era, it's really hard to have that leadership that you look for in teams because guys don't stick around for a long time. And so with all of the buzz around guys leaving and all of the buzz around guys coming in, what I wanted to do is take some time and honor those guys who stuck around. Because you have to have a core group of guys who are going to stay with a team in order to build that leadership component, people who are going to get to know what the program is about, and they're going to be able to translate that culture of the program to new people coming in. So that's what this show is going to be about. All right, so let's just dive right in. Again, go ahead and join me in the chat and let me know your thoughts. We're going to start on the offensive side of the ball because there are a lot more returning starters or returning players in general on the offensive side of the ball. And we have to start with none other than Julian Juju Lewis, our starting quarterback. I think a lot gets lost in the conversation around what happened last year, what's happened in the transfer portal, and how important of a piece Juju Lewis is. Football in the modern era is a quarterback sport. You see it in the NFL, right? The teams who are doing very, very well have found their franchise quarterback and they build around them. Much of the debate around Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns is, hey, what are you going to do? Have you found your starting quarterback in Shedeur Sanders and you're going to build around him? Or are you going to draft a quarterback either this year or the year after? And that's really what the debate is about. Any football team who has not found their starting quarterback is in real trouble. As much as the departures in the transfer portal for players leaving the team were impactful, and I think early on, man, I started to panic with certain names entering the portal. One of the names and one of the areas where you never really had to panic as a Colorado Buffaloes fan, and this was an area of real concern when the season ended, was around having your starting quarterback. And sometimes maybe it's because of Juju's size, or maybe Juju is kind of on the quieter side. He isn't kind of this big personality like a Shador Sanders. He really doesn't draw a lot of attention to himself. I think he's really focused on, well, how do I get better, right? Has that work ethic like a Shador Sanders. That many people don't really focus on the fact or celebrate the fact that we have our starting quarterback. He's not going anywhere. There are teams out there in the portal, like the LSU's of the world, who had to go out and get a starting quarterback. I think they signed Sam Levitt. And there are others, right? Brandon Sorsby entered the transfer portal, and a lot of teams are paying a lot of money for a starting quarterback. So one of the things that I want to really point out is that Colorado successfully retained Juju Lewis, and I want to give him his flowers for making that decision to stay. That not only makes him the quarterback of this team, but like was pretty fortuitous, I think is the right word, is Shador Sanders handing him the keys, right? And that's not just symbolic of him being the quarterback of the team, but essentially after the Jordan Seaton entered the portal, Julian Lewis has become that premier high 4-star, 5-star recruit that is the franchise player right now. Not by virtue of the fact that he stayed, not by virtue of the fact that he's quarterback, but by virtue of the fact that he is probably the highest ranked recruit and player still left on this team. And so he not only has to play well as the quarterback of the team, he is now the face of Colorado Buffaloes football. And Coach Prime talks about the bright lights, right? And he talks about it's one thing to watch this team on TV and say you want to come and play in Colorado. It's another thing to come and play and have all eyes on you in this rabid fan base that has very, very high expectations of everybody who puts on that Colorado jersey. So Juju Lewis is really now the franchise, right? It is all on his shoulders. One, to play well, to lead the offense, but also to lead that locker room. And I think he's the man for the job, right? He's been that guy everywhere he's been at every level, starting with his freshman season and what he did in top tier Georgia football. So he has a track record of winning. He has a good head on his shoulders for all intents and purposes, and all the reporting that you have coming out of Colorado, and he's there working, right? And one of the examples of kind of the way he views the game and views the responsibility that he has to win is on a what was it? Not Reach the People, Well Off Media video. Bucky, late last season was talking about Julian Lewis after his first start, really being very emotional about the loss and being one of the very few guys in the locker room who showed his emotion and how much that loss really impacted him. And I think a lot of that seemed to get lost towards the end of the season. So in terms of guys who are returning and what their role and responsibility is, Julian Lewis is the franchise. So I'm really excited to see what he does this year. And a confirmation of the fact that he is the franchise is how much Colorado went and invested in giving him the weapons that he needs to be successful, both up front on the offensive line, which we're going to talk about some of those returners, but also in the skilled positions. All right, so I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on Julian Lewis and his return to Colorado and what your expectations are of him there. Now let's move on to the running back room. So one of my favorite players, I mean, probably top 2 or 3 over the last 2 or 3 years in terms of guys who are clearly there and are clearly bought into the program and they're willing to just put their head down and work is Micah Welsh. I don't think this guy really gets the credit from the number of carries that he's actually received, the number of games that he's actually played in, and the kind of production that he's had. Remember, there's been an exodus in that running back room of some very, very talented running backs. And I don't really blame them, right? Because for some of these guys who have left, they are 3 down backs, right? So like your Dallin Hayden, your Simeon Price, those guys have exited the room because they're looking for more carries. But for the number of carries and the production that Micah Welsh has had, he's still up there in some of my favorite players. And he's one of these guys who, again, doesn't draw a lot of attention to himself. You're not going to see him in front of the camera on Well Off or Reach the People. He's going to be in that weight room and working. And I think he's going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries to the Brennan Marion go-go offense in Colorado. Here's why. He's 5'9", so he's compact, and he's 215 pounds. And he runs every bit of those 215 pounds, not only to get downfield and get yards, but to punish defenders for trying to tackle him. And, you know, among the many people who were probably sat down and told about the rebuild and what their role might be, I think Micah Welch might have been one of those guys who both the existing coaching staff and Brennan Marion coming in would want to keep. I mean, if you look at the running back room right now, he is the only true out of high school recruited Power 4 running back that they have right now. So alongside him, of course, you have DeKalen Taylor returning, but he came out of Incarnate Word, which is an FCS program. And then you have the Sac State transfers like a Damian Henderson or Jacquel Smith, etc., who are FCS players as well, coming out of Sacramento State, along with Brennan Marion, who played in his system last year, which was very smart to bring those guys over. But this show is not really on the transfers; it's really about the guys who chose to stick around. And so Michael Welch, I think he's going to be a big beneficiary of this. He is a power back. He's going to run that ball north and south, which is what Brennan Marion wants out of his running backs. But he's also going to be a viable pass catching threat. I think one of the things that he isn't given enough credit for is his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. And this is going to be his third season with the Buffs. He played part of his freshman year, but he got hurt, right? I think he suffered a hamstring injury. And he was one of the bright spots as a freshman in 2024. And he came back in 2025, and he was splitting a lot of reps with Dallin and Simeon and DeKalen as well. I know DeKalen went down, Simeon went down. And so a bulk of the carries towards the end of the season were Micah's and Dallin's. But this team really wasn't running the ball as intentionally as the run game success would have dictated that they should have continued to do. So hopefully with Brennan Marion really being a run-first offense, Micah Welch is going to be a beneficiary. He absolutely deserves to have the majority of the carries in this running back room. Honorable mention in terms of guys returning, of course, is DeKalen Taylor. I think he's a real threat to keep a lot of defenses guessing in terms of how they're going to use him. I think he'll be able to get out wide and create mismatches in this offense. He'll also be a guy who might, via motion, be able to create a lot of confusion in the backfield. So shout out to DeKalen Taylor, honorable mention there. And then Titus Bautista, he's still on the roster because you need that running back depth. So shout out to those guys who chose to stay. Oh, I forgot to mention somebody in the quarterback room who also decided to stay. I think a lot of buzz is around Isaac Wilson coming over from Utah to back up Juju Lewis, but Dominic Pounder also decided to stay. And so I'm going to be excited to watch competition in the quarterback room, right? Because the expectation is that Juju is going to start, but he's going to need to compete and demonstrate that he's a far better quarterback than the other guys in the room. But then also at the running back position, although I'm leaning heavy in Michael Welch being that starting running back and earning a majority of the reps, I think there's going to be a lot of competition there as well. Another guy that I'm very excited that chose to return is tight end Zach Atkins. He's a guy I felt was underutilized in the offense last year, and a guy who I think is going to be very, very productive in the go-go offense. I know he's going to need to improve in his run blocking, right? Because this is a run-first offense. but also his ability to get open in the short to intermediate routes, right? Running much better routes as a tight end. And I think he could be a real threat. He's 6'4", 240 pounds, so he is a big target for Juju Lewis. I think he could really serve in that safety blanket role, right? When it all breaks down and you need somebody you can go to and somebody that's reliable, that's going to make that catch for you. I think Zach Atkins is going to be that guy for Juju Lewis. There are other some important names in the tight end room that are returning, including Corbin Lazier, who was a freshman last year, is going to be a sophomore this year, 6'5", 250 pounds, so a really big guy. Brady Kopetz, who had entered the transfer portal, but then received, I believe, a scholarship, and so he's returning to the Buffs. Charlie Williams, I don't know much about him, so I'll probably have to do some study as the season goes on. And then a transfer of Fisher Clements. But big shout out for Zach Owens for staying down, for understanding, hey, this is my real opportunity now in my second year with the Buffs to really make an impact. All right, so the room where there's the most hype on the offense right now is around the wide receiver room, right? And the one thing about a Coach Prime team is that they're going to be loaded with wide receivers, and 2026 is going to be no different. But again, the focus is on the guys who stayed down, and one of the guys really I'm proudest of is JoJo Williams. During the transfer portal, there was some controversy, right, where his name was entered into the transfer portal, I believe, by On3. And he really came out and said, hey, you guys need to get this corrected right now. I am not entering the transfer portal. You would think with the kind of firepower they were bringing in, a guy like JoJo Williams, who could and probably was being recruited by other teams to go make some big money and be that premier wide receiver, decided to stay. To something he knows, right, about, or something he's been told, right, about his film and how Brennan Marion intends to use him, and also how the competition in that room is going to help him improve as a wide receiver, and how Brennan Marion's coaching as a wide receiver is going to help him improve as well. So very excited about the fact that JoJo Williams decided to stay. Now there's going to be some conversation. Is he going to be wide receiver one, or is it going to be DeAndre Moore? But hey, as a returner, I love to see JoJo Williams as that down the field threat, that big guy who can go and get those jump balls for you. And I think Julian Lewis having at least one starting running back that he's had for a year, he knows how this guy runs routes. He knows which routes JoJo Williams prefers. He knows that JoJo Williams is a reliable playmaker for him. He's already thrown him touchdown passes. I think it's great when your starting quarterback has familiarity with at least one of the starting wide receivers. So big shout out to JoJo Williams. And big shout out to Quentin Gibson and Quanell Farrakhan, right? Two freshmen last year that saw playing time. Another great thing about Coach Prime, right? If you put in the hard work, regardless of if you're a freshman or not, or where you might be on the depth chart, if you're practicing hard, if you're making plays in practice, Coach Prime is going to put you on the field. And big shout out to Quentin Gibson. I think he just received all freshman team honors. So congratulations to him. I think it was mostly in the return game where he's very, very dangerous. And so what are going to be their roles and responsibilities, right? For JoJo Williams is to just go out there and make plays, right? And be that kind of fired up team guy that he really is, and make sure that his teammates stay locked in throughout the game. I think he's really that rah-rah guy in the wide receiver room from what I've seen. But Quentin Gibson is about making an impact on special teams. I think he's going to be the primary kick returner. And I think this year he's really going to have an opportunity to break some kicks, because with a lot of these guys who are transferring in who are depth pieces, I think they're going to be really, really good in the return game and special teams. And Quentin Gibson is going to be the featured kick returner and punt returner, but I'm guessing he's going to split some of those reps with Boo Carter at punt return, but certainly kick return. On the punt return side, they might lean more Quanell and Boo Carter, even though they might mix in a little bit of Quentin Gibson. But in terms of somebody who's a sure fielder of punts, Quanell Farrakhan Jr. is that guy. And I think he's going to probably be backing up JoJo Williams. I think he is going to get his opportunities to play because he is that good of a player, a four-star coming out of high school. But, man, the competition in that wide receiver room is going to be tough. Of course, further down the depth chart, You have Hakeem Williams, who's also a big wide receiver. Interested to see how they're going to use him. And two guys who don't really get a lot said about them, Taggart Barden, who was making his way up the depth chart until he got hurt and couldn't play in 2025, and Caleb Mathis, who has been Mr. Reliable since Prime has been there. I'm really interested to see what kind of playing time those three guys are going to be able to eke out for themselves this season. Hakeem Williams, Taggart Barden, and Caleb Mathis, all guys who are capable of getting on the field. But in this loaded of a room, we just want to see how Brennan Marion intends to use all of his depth at the wide receiver position. All right, guys, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a drink. And let's see what's happening in the chat. It's real quiet in the chat, man. I don't know. Is it Saturday? Something going on? Everybody busy? Maybe you're eating while you're watching this. You're washing dishes while you're watching this. I totally understand. But please let me know what you think about what is being said on this live. All right. We're going to, Carson Westbrook. Can't forget to mention Carson Westbrook is also a wide receiver for the Buffs. All right. So let's keep this show on the road. Let's talk about the offensive line, where we've seen a lot of movements and kind of a big portal entry in Jordan Seaton going into the portal. But the guys who are returning, who I believe really deserve flowers here, are Yaya Atia, right? You know he's going to stay down, right? He's a Sanders at this point at that left guard spot. He had some opportunities to start in 2025. I certainly know he's going to be in the mix for a starting position in 2026. 6 foot and a quarter, 340 pounds. So a big body at that left guard spot. I'd love to see him continue to develop as a run blocker and improve as a pass blocker as well. But he is definitely in the mix. Chauncey Gooden, right? A highly recruited guy coming out of high school, I believe 4-star, 6'3", 380 pounds. He's going to have another year under his belt. He didn't really, I don't know if he played in any games in 2025, but he certainly was one of those kids because of his size. It really had to get in shape. One of the things that you saw from Chauncey Gooden on a lot of the well-off videos was him really gassing, right, when they were doing their conditioning. I think a year working with Coach Swayze is going to do the body good for Chauncey Gooden. I believe he's going to come into this season much stronger. I think he's going to come into this season in better shape, right, to be able to play a full game of football at right guard and really compete. And what I've really heard in terms of Chauncey's strength is he's that real road grader. He's going to open up a hole, right? You're running behind somebody who's 6'3", 380 pounds, and that person is strong and in shape, right? He could do that for 4 quarters. I think Chauncey Gooden is going to be a very, very promising prospect at right guard for Colorado. Of course, Larry Johnson, that's the starting right tackle from the 2025 season returns. He's 6'7", 350 pounds. And then further down the depth chart is Andre Roy, who got some reps at tackle. And now that Jordan Seaton is gone, the tackle competition has opened up. They continue to sign players who have experience playing tackle and guard. So the Taj Whites of the world, the Jaden Richardsons of the world, Bo Hugleys. And then I think today, which is Saturday, January the 17th, they just signed Leon Bell, the University of California transfer who has experience playing tackle. So all in all, Colorado made a statement saying basically Juju Lewis is our QB1. This is our franchise player. And we're going to build an offensive system, including bring on an OC that's going to help Juju be as successful as possible. So big shout out to all those guys who are returning, man. All the buzz about people who were leaving, all the buzz about people who are coming in. Big shout outs to the people who decided to stick it out. And then, of course, some honorable mention names, other guys who decided to stick it out. Phillip Houston, who I'm sure is going to want to compete for a starting job. And then Kareem Harden, who is, again, another guy who has stayed 10 toes down, who has contributed. He's moved around that offensive line and has done whatever has been asked of him by those coaches to do what the team needs to be successful. All right, man. If you haven't hit that like button yet, please go ahead and hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing and join the conversation in the comments, right? I would love to hear your perspective. All right, we're going to switch over to the defensive side of the ball. And let's start with the defensive line because there was a mass exodus there. And the only returning starter on that defensive line is Quincy Wiggins, right? So 6'5", 255 pounds. Was expecting a much bigger season from him. I know early in the season he played some edge, but because of injuries and the Buffs being so depleted throughout the season at defensive tackle, he did have some reps on the interior. So there's a reason why Quincy stayed. One, you could say, hey, this is where he wants to be. Two, probably great advisors, right? People telling him, look, hey, the portal is not always what it seems to be. The grass is not always greener. You already have opportunity. You've seen the field here in Colorado. You might as well stick it out and continue to do the work and develop. But also, I think the coaches really believe in him as a prospect, right? I know Warren Sapp spoke really highly of him, of the progress that he made from year one to year two. And I'm sure they want to continue to see that on the defensive line from Quincy Wiggins in 2026. At the linebacker spot, that room was really depleted, but I know that room really needed a complete overhaul. So much of the excitement at linebacker are around the new entries, but a very intriguing returner is going to be Kylan Salter, 6'2", 230 pounds. For people who have seen him in person, I guess you can get a little bit of this when you watch the video, but for the people who have seen this guy in person, it's that he already has an NFL body. Can he put that body together with the football IQ and then the hustle that you need to have at linebacker to earn yourself some playing time, if not really battling out for a starting spot, which will be pretty tough with Leona Leafau and Gideon Lampron as your competition. You know, that's going to be interested for him. But, hey, kudos to Kylan Salter for sticking it out. Even though he knew that they were bringing in not only a great transfer class of linebackers who have playing experience, but also some very promising freshmen who would be battling for starting jobs in 2027, namely Carson Crawford, Rodney Colton Jr., and to a lesser extent, Kobe Johnson. All right, so that's the linebacker room. So as you can see, I had a lot more people to talk about on offense, because they were able to retain a lot of people. That says a lot about what they felt they already had as pieces that could contribute on the offensive side of the ball. They added Brandon Marion, and he added pieces here and there, right? He wanted to shore up for some of the exits. But on the offensive side, you can see it was a much longer conversation. On the defensive side, going 3-9, I feel like they felt like they just needed a complete overhaul on defense, right? So only one returner on the defensive line. I'm only mentioning really Kylan Salter here. Of course, there's some other guys in that room like a Gage Goldberg or Bo LaPena who are also returning. But I think of the returners, Kylan Salter was the one worth getting into a little bit more depth. All right. Now, in the cornerback room, in terms of returner, very early on, even before the portal opened and right after the season ended, when there was a lot of buzz about guys who would be entering the portal, RJ Johnson really affirmed the fact that he would be returning this year to compete for a starting job. He was the starter going into 2025. He got hurt. He didn't play most of the season. And there was a little bit of a revolving door at cornerback. And overall, the DBs didn't play well in 2025. But it's great to see that RJ Johnson is returning. Makari Vickers is also returning. He was playing the outside due to injuries. Don't know if he's really that kind of outside corner that can be out there on an island by himself. Probably more of a nickel or a star, somebody that you could bring inside to try to play the slot receiver. But again, you need to have that quickness and physicality to really get hands on guys who are really speedy and shifty. So big shout out to Makari Vickers for choosing to return. Of course, everybody know Ben Finiseth, who's not only a returner, but he's an OG and or OB, original buff. He was there when Prime came in 2023. He stuck it out. He earned himself playing time, a lot of playing time in 2025 as there was a safety rotation there, but he returns in that safety room. So not only is he a great culture guy, he's a hard worker, he's a great student. He's also been very, very effective in terms of recruiting and setting the culture. So Ben Finiseth is definitely an asset for the program. All right. And then last but not least, the Shark, right? Cameron Silman Craig's favorite player. This is the guy whose jersey he wears when he goes to the game is Cole Mathis. And this is a kid with a lot of heart. He doesn't have that size, but he returns again. So I always love watching Cole, right? He's that great. I don't want to call him necessarily Rudy. He's a football player, right? Like everybody else on the field. But he's just an undersized kid, even though he has all the heart in the world. So that's in terms of, if I missed anybody, it's not intentional. Those are just the names that I know to mention here on this video. I'm not really talking about specialists here. I think Damon Greaves is maybe a name to mention in terms of specialist, the punter who's returning, who had a great start to the season. But like many things throughout the year, it's really hard to keep poor performance on other sides of the ball from kind of rubbing off on you, even though you might be having a good season. I think he suffered from a little bit of that rubbing off on him throughout the season. So he really didn't end the year that strong in terms of his overall performance. But it's great to have a returning punter. Punting in football is very important. You're not going to always score. You're not going to get every first down, but you can change field position with punting. I know Mata is now gone, and I think the kid, I think his name was Stojakovic, also left. So they brought in a kicker from Grambling State. I don't know if that's going to be just and they also lost Buck Buchanan. So I don't know if he's just going to be a kickoff specialist, or if they're going to bring in a kicker from the portal, even though the portal is closed and new entries can't go into the portal. Of course, you can still pull guys out of the portal. Now you just have a little bit of time to evaluate people before you make that decision. With Jordan Seaton leaving, what that's done for the Buffs also is free up some capital where they could make some additional investments. I love what they've done to shore up the offensive line. That area is going to be very competitive. Of course, the wide receiver room is going to be ultra competitive. I think they're in a good spot at tight end. They might add another running back out of the portal, but I really like Michael Welch there for a majority of those carries. Defensive tackle, I think they still need one or two more defensive tackles that are of size. Right now, defensive tackle starters are Santana Hooper, right, 6'2", 265, and maybe Cedric Smith, 6'4", 320, and then a bunch of other rotational guys that are also, not really that prototypical size that you might find in the SEC or the Big Ten. But we'll see. If you could play ball, you can play ball. So, guys, that's really what I wanted to cover right now on this live. Since we don't have that many comments or people that I really want to have a conversation about this stuff right now, I'm going to go ahead and jump. I'll be back to do some highlight reviews and stuff like that on a regular basis. But I just wanted the portal to kind of open, see who was going out, see who was coming in, and then really start to do my content once the dust settled a little bit. I appreciate you guys for being here. Please hit that like, hit that subscribe, and please share this video with other people who could benefit from it. Again, it had been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without some dope content to react to. Hopefully this gives you something to enjoy on your Saturday. Until next time, peace.